Hello everyone, and welcome back to our video series of using Schoology in your classroom and providing students with a safe environment to explore social media experiences like posting, replying to other posts, and engaging in conversations online. Okay, now here we go. So we're going to get into today some aspects of posting and adding links and adding files, and then we're going to kind of expand more into creation of a course and groups and what that means. And then we'll wrap it up with some assignments and quizzes and some other aspects, okay? So really creating a post is pretty easy. Now, we'll talk about creating folders and those issues later. But, basically adding materials, this section right here is where you really begin everything. And, you can add a discussion, and I'm just going to add some discussions over here to my course. And at this point, you have some options of giving a title to your discussion, and we'll just call it Canisius test. And here you can certainly provide a detailed description of the prompts that you're looking the students to engage in. Okay. Again, this is completely, in-house sort of text editor. You can do all your bold and strike throughs, and you can do some formatting with strike throughs and so forth, and alignment, and you can add links. You can insert content, and you can insert, things like equations and symbols and so forth. You got a whole table you can create in here. Schoology has one quirk, which is sort of odd. You have to turn the spell check on. Make sure you do that. I always tell my students, don't forget about that. And you can have headings and different text styles, and certainly, fonts. And this actually switches to HTML, which is more for advanced aspects. But again, if you are familiar with HTML writing, you can embed HTML code right in this editor, which is really kind of nice. Okay, and then you have your due date for the discussion. Okay, down here we can add files and links, which I'll show you momentarily. We can go right from our resources. Okay, which is really kind of nice. You can put a due date for a discussion, right? And you can enable grading, right? Which we can talk about later. And once you enable grading, is it a numeric grade? And then you can do rubrics within Schoology, which we'll save for more of an advanced session. Okay, and these options out here are a little bit advanced too. You can individually assign. See, I can bring this up for you. You can individually assign discussions or any assignment to individuals or groups, which is really kind of nice. Okay, if you have your learning objectives, you can do that. You can lock the assignment. This is nice. You can publish it to students, or you can unpublish it, which means that you can create content in Schoology without having to have it be visible to everybody, which is nice as you kind of preload and maybe think ahead. You don't want your students to see this material. It's kind of nice to have that option. And here, I think this is actually a really important one. As it defaults, members can see other responses before participating. If you click this option, it requires members to post first before they see other responses. Now, I think that's an important thing. It depends on what your goal is in your discussions and when you post on Schoology. If you just want a free-flowing conversation, I think that's fine, that people can read other comments and thoughts first. But I've noticed that sometimes when students, if this is a graded discussion, they'll sometimes kind of skim through all the other posts that have been already added and then kind of just restate it and summarize what's already been added. So that kind of eliminates that possibility by really forcing them to post their own content first before they can see other people's posts, which I think is kind of important. And you can always copy this to other courses if you have multiple courses in Schoology. Okay, so that's kind of like the breakdown and this is the similar interface when we do assignments and other aspects as well. Okay, so discussions are great, and I can show you some of our discussions here so you get a sense of what they're all about. But what I usually do, but these are example for my college students, I give them a prompt to consider for a discussion. I have the rubric already laid out for them so they understand what the expectations are. And then, these are in-depth, graduate level, college level discussions that are cited and so forth. And then other people reply to those discussions. And, they're very, very thorough, okay, in that respect. What I do, here's an example of the way I do, is I oftentimes reply even with a video prompt for a discussion, which you can also do, all right, which is actually, if you buy the enterprise or the full version of Schoology, that's already embedded as a tool. So that's kind of a nice thing, all right. So that's kind of the discussions that I do for the college level, okay. If I go back to my high school students, we have discussions in class, But what I do oftentimes is make Schoology an option that if you aren't in class a particular day, you're absent, or you felt that you didn't really get your thoughts or comments really heard during a discussion, that you can sort of, participate in that discussion at home, and you can get credit for that. So we have a lot of different discussions of things that we read, and some discussions are students post a lot, other times they don't because they made a lot of comments in class. But a similar interface where I have a rubric and people just post their comments if they really weren't able to talk in class. So that's one option. Okay, so let me go back to that discussion that we were kind of playing around with here. And basically, if you're in a discussion, now you can easily just post your comments. Okay, so what I'll do is let me open up one of these first discussions, and I'll give you a sense of what it actually looks like. So here's a discussion. And when a person posts for the first time in a discussion, they post in this box. Okay. Now, again, it's a very similar sort of setup as we saw when you actually, from a teacher standpoint, when you create a discussion, it's very similar. You can bold, you can highlight text, underline text, bullet lists, and so forth. You have to turn the spelling on, right? And you can also do this, which I've noticed some people don't realize, that you can actually drag this box and make it a little bigger, and then you can start typing your comments in here. Now, what I've always warned students that sometimes, you make a mistake as you're typing and you might hit the back key, and all of a sudden you might actually go to a different tab or hit the back button over here, and you will lose this. So sometimes I actually advise them to compose their responses either as a Word document or a Google Doc, and then just paste that into here. Okay, so I'm just doing a test post. And then over here, I can grab a file. If I wanted to grab a file, I can certainly do that. I'm just looking through some old, syllabus, right? I can grab that. I can grab a link, and I can paste a link in here from a website. So say this is the website I wanted to paste, the main Schoology. Let's actually go back to the main Schoology page. The main Schoology page, I can just copy that link. I could paste it in here, and then if I hit this little recycle button, it actually gives me the name of that. I could attach that link in there. All right, and I can even go to my resources, which we'll talk about later. This is kind of like the place where you house all your materials that you collected in Schoology, and you can also grab from there. All right, and then you just post, and that's it. All right, so then you see let me get out of here, make this a little bit smaller. So there is the post that I just created. Okay, I said test post, if you can see that. I did test post, and I had a link, and I had a file. It really doesn't get any easier in terms of creating a post on Schoology. So I think that's a really nice, easy to sort of navigate interface. Now, one thing I want to show you this is my high school version, which is more the enterprise version, which has a little more bells and whistles than the free version. If I go to post, and I don't know if you can see this, it looks all the same as what I just showed you on the free version, but then you have this little audio video recording. And this is really nice on the enterprise version. If I click on this, I don't have my webcam right now, but I can actually post an audio comment, or I can post an audio video comment right within the post, which is already embedded from Schoology. Now that's a really nice feature. Obviously, there are ways to do that I actually use with my free version just by using different apps on my phone, and different screencasting apps and different phone recording apps, and I just kind of, get a link from those recordings. But this is a much easier, streamlined sort of system, and especially if you're dealing with younger students, they can actually, experiment and add their audio, add audio, video. Certainly in terms of like foreign language aspects, this is absolutely wonderful. So that's really kind of nice. Now, one thing I want to bring up now, for the graduate level, and even for my high school students, I don't moderate my discussions. But you can actually set that up where you can actually moderate them, meaning that you can sort of preview them before you make them public to the whole entire class, just to make sure everybody's sort of being respectful and behaving accordingly online. But again, these are all good social media skills to learn. Like, how do we actually have a conversation online? How do we post something meaningful? And how do we do that beyond just, a tweet of 120 or now 240 characters, right? So I think this is really a good tool to teach them digital literacy in a safe, sort of enclosed environment where they don't have to really be worried about, people judging them in some respects. Okay, so here we go. So I want to get back to our main section here, and I want to sort of dive into some of the other features. So we talked about a discussion, and we talked about adding links and adding files. So I hope that was kind of easy. Now, those same techniques are carried throughout Schoology. So even when you're not in a discussion, if I really wanted to add a file, a link, or an external tool, I can just hit this, and now I get a similar interface. I can add a file. Okay, so I can go here. I can make this, publish to my students. I can attach the file. I can just grab any file I want. Let me just kind of grab this one again, right? And I can even go copy this to other courses if I have that. If I don't like the way this title looks, I can edit that, and I can add a file, which is really, really easy. Now, it's down here at the bottom, and what's nice with Schoology, it's really easy to kind of just grab this, hold it with your mouse button, and just drag it up, and I can drag that any place I really wanted to, which is really, really kind of nice. I can also add a link, which is the same kind of idea that we just saw in the post. It looks exactly the same. I don't know if I have that URL still there. I do. I can paste in a URL. Here's what I use a lot for pasting in Google Docs and other things like that. And I can just attach it. Now, one thing that I really wanted, I've learned, and I'm using this for many years now, is that this defaults to displaying within Schoology. And let me show you what that means. I'm going to leave that alone. So I'm going to add this link to the bottom of our page here. And it already gives me the nice title. Even kind of grabs the icon of the website in most cases, so it looks pretty neat. But if I click on that, it now opens the web page within the Schoology viewer sometimes. Sometimes it doesn't. And students have to know to either click here or click here to go to the link. So if I click here, it actually goes to the link. I don't like that. And sometimes the web page will actually display within the Schoology viewer. All right, so what I do, let me go back to our section. I'm going to go back to that link at the bottom here. I can always edit links. So I can always edit. When I hit this little gear, always comes up. I can unpublish it, meaning that I can make this visible only to myself, not to my students. I can move it somewhere else within the course. I can copy this to another course if I teach, multiple sections of the same course. I can delete it, but I can also even add it to my resources to sort of save for later. But I'm going to edit it. And when I edit it, it brings up this sort of box again. And then I'm going to say display in a new window. And I always use that all the time. So I'm going to save that. And now when I click the link, see, it just pops up in a new tab. And I think that's a lot cleaner, a lot easier than bringing it up into the Schoology viewer and then forcing students to kind of maybe click somewhere else again. And that gets a little cumbersome. Okay, so that was some basic stuff, right? Posting, even we talked about adding a discussion, we talked about adding some links and files, and that's the basis of now building a lot of great stuff on Schoology. All right, well, thank you so much and have a great day. Take care. Bye-bye.